Oh, hey YouTube, what's it again? My name is Vivid, and today we are doing a tier list video. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these. I hope you're stoked for this because today's video is going to be competitive Pokemon mechanics. Now, this tier list was provided by EaksTV. He's a Twitch streamer. I do not know much about them. I'm assuming their content is fantastic. This is a really good idea for a tier list video. I will link their Twitch in the description down below. It's the only thing they have linked on Twitter. I'll link their Twitch and Twitter. So yeah, this is where I got the tier list. Thank you so much, Eeks, for making this. I haven't watched your rendition of this, but that's what we're going to be ranking: Pokemon competitive mechanics. So things like burn, sleep, paralysis, priority. It's probably going to be a long video because I'll probably argue with myself during the video. That being said, we should just start ranking things. But before we get right on to ranking things, I want to say a few quick things. One of those is that if you are enjoying watching me here on YouTube, you will probably also enjoy watching me on Twitch. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, with the exception of last week and this week. Last week, we had family visiting from out of state. Then we went out of state for a camping trip. And then this weekend, we're going out of state again for a family trip. So the streaming schedule has been a little wonky, but every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you're enjoying watching me here, I would love to see you live. The streams have been great. We're going to be doing the doubles ranked ladder in game, and also I'm thinking about doing some Among Us streams. Let me know if that interests you. The second thing I want to mention before we actually get into the tier list video is if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I feel like I say this every video, and it's not just I feel, I do. A lot of my views are coming from people who aren't subscribed. So if that's you, please click that sub button. It would mean the absolute most to me. But that being said, let's rank some competitive Pokemon mechanics, shall we? All right, so we're here on the tier list. The tiers I have laid out are great design. This means it is a really well-designed mechanic. I think it is very good for the game. After that, we have healthy. So this could be like S tier. A tier is healthy. This is healthy for the game. It is good that the game includes these mechanics. The Denny's tier, if you haven't ever seen one of my tier lists before where I've said something is the Denny's of that specific thing, Denny's is, everything from Denny's is just okay, right? Like, you never go to Denny's and the service is phenomenal or the food is phenomenal, but it's also never awful. It's just okay. So the Denny's tier is these mechanics are okay for the game. I think they fit fine, but they're not stellar. They don't suck. Flawed is, I think this mechanic is fundamentally flawed on one level or another. I think that something about it should probably be tweaked. Reworked is this mechanic needs a rehaul from the ground up. The mechanic doesn't work in a way that complements the game. And then remove is this mechanic really doesn't fit in a competitive game, because we're ranking these based on competitive. And I guess I should say before we get into it that most of my experience comes from Draft League and singles. I will be ranking things that are more prevalent in doubles as like a doubles mechanic. But yeah, these are most of my experience is Draft League. So, you know, take my opinions here with a grain of salt. If you have differing opinions, it's just opinions. You can tell me in the comment section immediately which ones I have wrong. I'm going to scroll down real quick so you can see all the mechanics. So we have Ally Switch, Attract, Assault Vest, Burn, Choice Items, Confusion, Crits, Damage Enhancers, Dynamax, Fake Out, Flinch, Follow Me, Freeze, Gyms, Heal and Cure Berries, Helping Hand, Intimidate, Megastones, Paralysis, Perish Song, Prankster, Protect, Poison, Res Berries. These are the resistance berries. Okay. Safety Goggles, Shadow Tag, Sleep, Sub, Tailwind, Taunt, Terrains, Trick Room, Weakness Policy, Weather, Z Crystals, Physical Special Splits, and Priority. Okay. So that being said, I think we just jump into this and I just start pulling out mechanics that I think are really healthy and we'll figure it out. Like I said, I'm probably going to argue with myself a little bit. Okay. Damage enhancers, things like Life Orb, I think are inherently healthy for the game. I think that without damage boosting items like things like Life Orb, Metronome, even like the plates or things like Charcoal, the like type specific items, I think without those we get into territory where some Pokemon have really hard times breaking through or Pokemon have hard times cleaning. These I could see, I don't think these are great design. I think some of them are probably like a little bit centralizing. Like Life Orb is obviously like the sort of like the standout, right? Like Life Orb, it provides you with a lot of benefit at pretty little cost. Like the damage output Life Orb gives is insane, and the cost is, what is it, like a 12th or a 10th of your HP? I don't know all of the mechanics from top to bottom. I will admit that right now. Like I think Life Orb is a 10th, right? I think you roughly get 10 attacks because in Little Cup, if you make your EV spreads right, or Little Cup when Pokemon are like level 5 is what Little Cup means, you can get 11 attacks with the Life Orb. So I think it's 10. I'm gonna go with that. Either way, I think damage enhancers are important. I think without them, a lot of Pokemon have trouble breaking through specific Pokemon. Like securing 2-hit KOs in some instances is really, really important. Okay. Let's move on. I'm just gonna like pull these out kind of randomly. I don't think I want to go in alphabetical order. I think I'm gonna go in the order that I feel most attracted to these, what are these called again? Mechanics. Attract, I think, is like one, it rarely ever comes into play. No one is ever just like slamming attract sets, not in like high levels of competitive play at least. And Cute Charm, is it Cute Charm, the ability that causes attract? No one is, it's not super competitive. It's kind of frustrating, and it's like super luck based. I think that anything that is fundamentally RNG based is probably not the best mechanic, which you'll like. I like paralysis as a mechanic. I don't think that fully para is good. It's something I'll explain later. I think attract is just kind of like, one, I don't think it adds anything to the game. Two, it's just super annoying. I don't know. I don't think attract is a mechanic that we need to argue about a ton. I just think we could remove it from the game and it would be fine. I don't think it really hurts the game because no one uses it, but I also just don't think it's like a great mechanic. Okay, moving along, crits. I think crits should be reworked. I don't think they're healthy. I think crits are one of the most frustrating parts of the game. What you'll find in a lot of other games, in sort of like this RPG genre, right? Well, not specifically like the Pokemon RPG genre, but just like in RPGs, is you'll have entire builds of like characters or classes built around the crit mechanic, right? In other games. I would like to see something akin to that in Pokemon, where instead of every Pokemon just having a base chance to crit at any time, you sort of had to build out your Pokemon to crit. I don't know what that looks like inherently. It could come from items, it could come from tweaking abilities, like maybe the ability Sniper gives the Pokemon a chance to crit, so then only specific Pokemon have a shot to crit. I don't know what it looks like. Or maybe you give an item that gives a shot to crit and you build off of it that way. I really don't know what the rework looks like. I don't think I'm smart enough to say that. I think random crits are one of the most frustrating parts of the game. I think that it could be reworked, and I think it would be good for the game if it was reworked. Because right now, just like the chance, one, if you are building a set that gets like auto crits, like the sort of like Focus Energy Kingdra or Focus Energy Drapion or one of those type of builds, I think that's fine. Because you're building your Pokemon, like I said, like you're making a build specifically to get crits. As is with like the random chance, I think that it's not the best mechanic. I don't know, maybe people will disagree with me. Assault Vest, I think, is great design. Assault Vest limits your Pokemon, if you don't know, it like limits you to only using attacking moves, and then it gives you a bump to your special defense. I think it's really important to have Assault Vest because there's not an Intimidate for special attacks. I think Intimidate is also great design. It might fall more into healthy than great design because some Intimidate Pokemon can be really over centralizing for specific formats. Like Incineroar is really, really centralizing in the VGC format. I'm trying to think of a good example, like Gyarados, not really. Salamence, I think, used to be very centralizing. Those inevitably sort of like transition to their Moxie sets, in singles at least. I mean, you can always use them as Intimidate mods and it's not like ever a bad thing. I don't know. Intimidate, I think is, I'm going to slide it into healthy for now. These two I'm just doing at the same time because I think they're like both different parts of the same coin, just giving you a way to sort of like withstand big hits from physical and special Pokemon. That's like the idea here, right? So I think they're kind of two parts of the same coin. I might rethink Intimidate here. I think Assault Vest, I think it stays because I think it's Assault Vest, you get a really, really big benefit in that you get much more specially bulky, but it also comes at the cost of like you can't use supports or what is the correct term? It's like not special moves, not physical moves, status moves. You can't use any support status moves at all. So Burn, I think we're going to slot into the Denny's tier for now. I think Burn is good. Hold on, I'm taking a drink. I'm probably going to have to pause this video and go get more water. No cap. Burn, I think, is good. I think I don't know if I'd say it's healthy for the game. I might say it's healthy for the game. I think Burn is, there's probably, I think it's like problematic that Burn does what Burn does, which is chipping away for damage at the end of every turn and then halving the burn Pokemon's physical attack when Intimidate exists, right? Like, I think it becomes a lot harder in specific formats to chip in for a ton of damage with physical Pokemon if something like Scald is really prevalent, or there's like a bunch of Will-O-Wisp mons running around and like Intimidate mons. Like, it makes it really hard. Like, if you get burned and Intimidated, your Pokemon just has 0 damage output, right? So I think Burn is good. I think that, and this is probably going to be a hot take here, I think Paralysis should probably be reworked. To where maybe not Paralysis, maybe Poison. Paralysis I think needs to be reworked, specifically because the chance to be fully parried is not great for the game. I don't know how to fix it 100% right now. I'm going to tell you, I didn't like go into this tier list. Like, I didn't research all of these mechanics. I didn't sit here and try to like mull over how I would fix everything that I think needs to be reworked. But the fully para chance is, I think, a little bit too RNG based. I think it's great that Paralysis gives you speed control. I think that the full paras are game breaking in certain instances. And I think that that is the part that probably could be fixed. I don't think you could take Paralysis and then also make it cut special attack like I was about to suggest, because I think cutting speed is important. I think speed control is really underrated in some instances, and Paralysis is a good version of that. So I wouldn't suggest that. I was about to say it off the top, like just sort of like going off the top to complement Burn. But what I do think is that I think Poison is good for the game. There's not a differentiation here between Poison and Toxic Poison, I don't believe. There's not. Okay, so this has always been my take. I think that Standard Poison should probably have a damage reduction like Burn does, or not. I mean, I think it would be fine, or maybe just take Burn back to its initial damage. Like, Burn and Poison used to do the same damage, right? Now Burn just essentially covers leftovers, where Poison is double leftovers damage. I don't know the exact numbers. Like I said, I didn't research this going into it. Either way, I think that Standard Poison should lower special attack, and Toxic Poison should just build up like Toxic Poison does. Maybe that's aggressive because Poison can be inflicted through Toxic Spikes. But either way, I think that Assault Vest being the only thing that hampers physical attackers when you have things like Intimidate and Burn, and like Intimidate is just an ability, like you just switch in and get it. There's no ability like that for special attacks. Burn is like a status that's pretty popular. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't think that it evens out in the end, and I could be wrong. Feel free to argue with me. Again, a lot of my input here, a lot of my like main experience in the competitive scene is coming from Draft League. So that's been one of the things that I've sort of like championed in that format. Maybe you are strictly VGC or strictly Smogon laddering, and you think that there's no like physical attackers are super broken, so that's why they have so many more checks, and that could be the case. Who knows? Let's move along. Dynamax. I think Dynamax needs to be reworked. I'm not gonna lie. I think Dynamax is oppressive. I think it's inherently a flawed mechanic. It can be either really broken. It can be either really broken, or it can make you feel like you wasted 3 turns of your life, or a potential 3 turns of your life, especially if you Dynamax and then just get blown back. I mean, obviously that's like player error, but you understand what I'm saying here. This mechanic, it benefits you to wait longer in games to like pop off your Dynamax, which I guess Z Crystals were the same way, but Z Crystals were like a one-shot, like a one-shot kill. It was like, not at all, it didn't always kill, but it was like a one-time thing. Megas, you typically, once they made it to where Megas got their speed tier right away, you typically wanted to Mega first turn always. The like outliers were like Sharpedo. I don't know, dude. Dynamax going through Protect is insane. Dynamax, like a lot of the moves coming with stat bumps is insane. A lot of the secondary effects that you get from Gigantamax moves is insane. I think it is inherently not a very healthy mechanic for the game. I don't know how you rework it. I don't know if you take it and you say, I don't know, maybe it's just a reworking a lot of the side effects you get from the moves. they're not going to change it. They won't. Like, Dynamax is what it is. I just think it could be reworked and probably be better. I think Megas and Z Crystals were so much better for the game. Let's just go ahead. I'm going to slot these up here. I think Megas were a great design. I think that it gave every team potential to take like one Pokemon that either they really loved and was already good and make it great, or a Pokemon that was never fantastic and make it super good. You know what I mean? Like Sableye going from not a fantastic Pokemon to like the epitome of a Stallmon, while frustrating, was really cool to see. I love Sableye. It's never been fantastic other than sort of like a niche mon. And then all of a sudden it got a Mega and it was insane. You can say the same thing for something like Lopunny. Mega Lopunny looked cool. It hit hard. I just think that there is a lot of space there. I would love to see them bring Megas back. I really hope they do. Maybe I'm just fanboying about Megas. I really, really liked X and Y as a generation, but I think the mechanic was good for the game. I think that Megas made team building interesting. I think it made team preview interesting, trying to predict what their Mega is, or if they had two potential Megas and they were going to pick one on the fly. I don't think that the way Megas were handled in like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was great, because you could just Mega whatever, whenever in battle. Like you could have 6 Pokemon that could Mega on your team and then just Mega whichever one was more beneficial for you. I don't think that's good. I think that's not great. Even though I liked the Let's Go meta, I don't think that's a good mechanic. But I think Megas as they were, because you're losing a lot of value by holding a stone, right? Like Mega Garchomp didn't see a lot of play because it lost speed and it lost the ability to hold an item. So like Choice Scarf Garchomp just like is a great revenge killer. Choice Band Garchomp hits hard. Life Orb Sword Stance Garchomp is a great cleaner. So I like it. There's a trade-off. It offers a lot. I don't know. I think it was a really good mechanic. No more Charizard forms though, please. Z Crystals I think were healthy for the game. I don't think they were a great design because they could be frustrating in the way that maxing is frustrating, but so much, like looking back on Z Crystals, I'm like fond of them. Even when I would participate in draft leagues where they would have like an open Z Crystal rule, where basically that meant any Pokemon on your team could use a Z move at any time. I think that is leagues, like you can't do a draft league and have an open Dynamax rule. I firmly believe that. I paused there for dramatic effect. I firmly believe that league would die. Feel free to prove me wrong in the comment section down below, but I don't think that's a thing. I don't know. I look back on Z Crystals and I think they're actually kind of cool. I think that they're really good. I mean, some of them were mega busted, like what was it? Como EMZ or whatever. Like that move, yeah, it was insane. But I mean, like the rest of them, it's just like making one move really strong. Like for Heatran, a really common Z Crystal was holding Grass EMZ. You lure in a water type or a ground type and you bop it, right? But after that, you just have Solar Beam on your Pokemon. So you're wasting a move slot and an item slot to potentially lure and kill something. When once it was figured out that that's what you were doing, you lost some surprise factor there. So yeah. I think that Z Crystals were healthy. I think it led to like interesting sort of like concepts in building. And again, it's just a one-time thing. One Pokemon gets to use a Z move per match. That move is really strong. That's it. I think it was good. Confusion is flawed. I don't know if Confusion needs to be reworked. I just think it's kind of flawed. I'm gonna leave it there. I think I'm gonna put it in flawed. I don't think it's as, it's kind of like paralysis, right? But you break out of Confusion. I think Confusion is flawed. I think anything that relies solely on like the dice rolling in your favor is probably like a little bit of a flawed mechanic. I'm having a hard time with this one. You can snap out of Confusion. You can't snap out of paralysis, right? You can't you can't snap out of your opponent landing a game-winning crit. Yeah, I don't know. I think Confusion is flawed solely because it's like random. Maybe if Confusion were made to where, which I guess you'd put it in rework at that point. Maybe if Confusion were like, you get confused and you always hit yourself on the first turn, I think that would be kind of busted, right? But then you always snapped out on the second turn. I don't think that fixes anything, actually. Then everybody's just running Confuse Ray. Yeah, I don't know, dude. I think I'm gonna put it in flawed. I don't know how to fix it though. Ally Switch. This one is only relevant it's a doubles, right? Like no, it's just not a move you play in singles or at all. Like, so you wouldn't play it on laddering unless you were doing doubles laddering, and you wouldn't play it in leagues ever unless you're doing a doubles league. I think a lot of people would probably snap it into remove. The problem is that you can't rework it. Inherently, you cannot, right? Like, if I put it in rework, what do I even suggest to rework ally switch with? Like, how are you reworking it? How are you reworking this mechanic where the Pokemon on the field switch places in a way that makes this move still do something and fixes it? I don't think you can. I think ally switch is really frustrating. I use ally switch once in a while. I think it is somewhat of a necessity on some Pokemon, but it's super frustrating. I think the game would probably be better if it were removed. I'm not the biggest champion of that. I know like some people out there think ally switch is the worst part of sort of like VGC or the doubles format. I don't know if I'm quite on that level, but I do think it's probably not great for the game, because once your opponent reveals ally switch, it's a massive mind game. Like, are they just gonna click ally switch again? So basically, like, once you reveal ally switch and it's like scuffed up one of your turns, every turn after that you have to waste some amount of mental energy trying to predict if they're gonna use ally switch again. I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, but it's definitely not a good thing. I don't know, I'm super middle of the road on this one, so you would think I would just put it in Denny's and say it's okay, but I don't think it's okay. I just am not. I feel like I use it, right? Like, I use the move, so I can't be like, oh, I think this is the worst thing ever. But also I think it's probably not good for the game. So I'm gonna jam it here. Let me know what you think about this one. I think it's a hot topic. Choice items I think are great design, sort of like Assault Vest. I mean, similar design space, right? Like, they limit your choices one way or another, and they give you a benefit. Like choice items, if you don't know, it's choice scarf, choice specs, choice band. What they do is each one, like the first move you click when your Pokemon is on the field, they lock you into that move. You can't use any other move as long as your Pokemon is in play, which Dynamax lets you get around, which is another reason maxing is super busted. So anyways, it locks you into a move and then you get a benefit. So choice scarf, you get your speed raised one stage, which basically, like all of these, you would take your stat and then multiply it by 1.5 is how the math works out on that. So choice band is physical attack, choice specs is special attack, and choice scarf is speed. So choice scarf, really good for revenge killers, lets you get in there, get some kills that you otherwise wouldn't get. Sometimes the surprise outspeed is all you need to claim a KO or to like get the edge. I think that's really important. And choice band and specs just let you pick up KOs you probably wouldn't otherwise. I think they're really good items. I think they're really well designed. They're similar to Assault Vest. I think these are really well designed and healthy for the game. Heal Cure Berries. So things like Lumberry, Citrus Berry, I think these are just fine, right? Like, I don't think these are... I think if we still had the Super Berries as they existed last season, in last generation, where they healed 50% of your health, I think they would be problematic. But now the super berries only heal 33% of your health when you drop to 25%. So it's like high risk, moderate reward instead of high risk, high reward. Cure berries like Lum, I think, are really important. Like Lumberry is really important on some sweepers, right? Like a Swords Dance sweeper that doesn't want to get burned, you want to just like slam a Lumberry. Or if you are, I think you just always do Lumberry, right? The only time you do Chesto is if you're like running rest. You don't want your Lumberry to get popped by someone burning your Pokemon that you're going to rest up with later, right? So you just run Chesto. I don't think anyone runs like whatever the paralysis berry is, the burn berry, like no one's running those. So it's really, we're just talking about Lum, Citrus, and the super berries here. I think they're fine. I think they're okay. They might even be healthy. But from my perspective, I think that they are just fine. Now, resistance berries, on the other hand, I think are actively healthy. I think these are good for the game. I don't know if that's a hot topic. I've never like had this discussion with anyone, but it really, like, especially in Draft League, I think they're super good. Because you have to constantly be like preparing for this. Like when you're running calcs in a Draft League match, what you typically do is you run a calc to see like how much damage is this going to do. Like, especially if you're trying to see like, can my, I think an example here that I've done in the past, specifically when I played against Pokegame, was, can my Tapu Bulu live a poison jab from his Mega Gallade. If I'm holding, is it Kebia, Kesib? It's one of those, something like that. If it's holding the Poison Resist Berry, right? Like, what is the maximum amount of damage I take from max attack, no investment? Like, I think it's really important for the game. I don't think it's like great design, like sort of like game defining, but I think it's very healthy. And I don't know, maybe resistance berries frustrate people. I will never know. I guess, are these heal cure? I don't think there's a slot here for like are they called pinch berries? The ones like Salic Berry, or I don't remember all of them, but the ones that like raise your speed or special attack. I think there's only one of those in the game right now, or maybe not all of them exist. I don't actually know. But it's interesting that those aren't here. I would say those are probably just fine too. I don't know which ones are in the game and which ones aren't. Gyms, I think, were sort of like Z moves, right? Like gyms were basically Z moves. They powered up an attack by 50%, I think, and it was a one-time pop. I think gems are probably healthier than Z crystals because they didn't let you do broken things like turn fly into a one-turn nuke to start like a Moxie boost spree. Or yeah, I think gems are healthier than Z crystals by like a pretty wide margin. I don't know. Is this a hot take? I didn't play in a ton of metas where gems were legal. I will be very upfront about that. I played a little bit of VGC in Gen 5, which was, I think, when gems were around. And they were used. I think they were good. I don't think they were busted. They're also really cool with unburdened Pokemon, which is something neat. Yeah, I think gems are healthy. This is one where I feel like I don't have enough experience playing with them to really make this call, but I'm going to put them in healthy because I think they're basically like Z crystals that let you get away with less broken strategies. Like, you can't just gem a solar beam to get a 200 base power grass attack, right? Or whatever solar beam turned into when you Z crystal it. So I think they're healthy. Could be wrong. Who knows? Flinching, I think, is probably, I don't know how you rework flinching. I think it's flawed. Well, that's because it's like random flinching, right? Like rock slide flinching or air slash flinching. And this is coming from someone who really loves getting an Iron Head flinch with Jirachi, getting an air slash flinch with Togekiss. Like, those are, that's part of my identity as a Pokemon player. I think flinching is probably inherently flawed. I think with Pokemon specifically like Jirachi and Togekiss, I think it makes sense because sort of like the idea with crits is that you're building this Pokemon. I mean, it's just because of its ability, right? But you're building this Pokemon to have a better chance of doing this one thing, which adds to their overall, I guess, like viability. I don't even know how you would rework flinching. I think it's probably flawed. I don't think it's like great for the game. I think it's sort of akin to paralysis, but I don't know how you rework it. This is a toughie. I might come back to this one. Follow Me, I think, is fine. There's so few Pokemon. I mean, if the game had 1 million more Follow Me Pokemon in it, then I guess I would feel a lot worse about this. I don't think it's like great for the game. I don't think it makes a super healthy metagame. I think it is pretty important for some strategies. I also don't think it's like flawed or you need to rework it. Maybe if every Pokemon got it, it would be atrocious, like Ally Switch. But I think Follow Me is something you can definitely plan for in a turn. Like, if a Pokemon is on the field, you should know that Pokemon can learn Follow Me, because I guess this is more specific to like Sun and Moon meta. Not Sun and Moon, I'm sorry, Sword and Shield meta, because so few Pokemon get Follow Me or like Rage Powder, that if a Pokemon's in play, you know that Pokemon has access to those moves, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I think Follow Me is probably just fine. Fake Out, I think, is also fine. It might even be healthy. I don't know. I think Fake Out is like an interesting ability, like it's an interesting move. It is inherently flinching, but it's not random. Whereas like normal flinching is random, right? Fake Out is you get this one turn when the Pokemon's first in play, and to use it again, you have to switch the Pokemon out and reset it. And it's like low base power, it's like 40, and it's a priority move, so it goes first, right? Like it out prioritizes other priority moves. I think Fake Out's fine. I don't know if I would say it's healthy. I don't know if I would say I don't think it's flawed. I think Fake Out's just fine. Freeze, I think is being frozen is like the worst thing that can happen. It's somewhere in between here. If there was a way, even if there was a way, I don't know, maybe reworking freeze is the way to go. You rework it where it's like easier to accomplish, but doesn't do what it does now. Like freezing a Pokemon now is akin to a death sentence. I don't know what the percentages are to unfreeze. I feel like a lot of times I get frozen, I thaw first or second turn. So I don't know what the percent is each turn to thaw. I know it, I think it's indefinite, unlike sleep, like whereas sleep has like a max time limit to it. I do not think freeze does. I think your percentage to your percentage to thaw is probably higher than your percentage to wake up. I don't know. I guess I should have looked up these specific mechanics before I went here, but freezing, I don't think it needs to be removed. I think it needs to be reworked, because the problem with freezing as it exists, right, is that the problem with freeze right now is that your Pokemon is essentially bricked. If your Pokemon gets frozen, it's bricked, and you have to roll the dice to thaw. Or you have to, I think it's like using Scald or certain fire moves, right? Like thaws you instantly, which you don't plan for in building. You don't say like, oh, I'm gonna run Scald on this Pokemon that doesn't need Scald because I might get frozen. That's not something you do in team building. So while I think that the mechanic could be reworked, I think as it is, if the options were rework freeze in a way where, I don't know, it did something maybe akin to paralysis. Like maybe if freeze had just the effects of paralysis where it lowered speed, or maybe forget lowering speed. Like if Pokemon's frozen, it always moves last, and your Pokemon has, I don't know, like a 25% chance to be frozen solid instead of attacking. Or maybe like it does damage at the end of every turn in the form of shivering. I don't know. The moral of the story is, as it exists, if the only options were remove it or it stays the same, I would say remove. But if we could rework it, I would rework it. So I'm going to slam it here. Perish Song, I think, is fine. I think it's just the Denny's of mechanics. I think it's not like great. It's not bad for the game. It's really hard to pull off Perish Song kills. Typically, like almost always, I mean, like you can get in scenarios where you claim 2 early KOs in like a double battle, and then you just click Perish Song and you protect stall for the rest of the game. I think those are really corner case scenarios. I mean, they happen for sure, but I don't think that that's like also bad. I think Perish Song's fine. Helping Hand, I think, is actually good. I think that, is it healthy or is it great? I think Helping Hand is good because you're giving up one entire Pokemon's action just to boost the damage of another Pokemon's move. And I mean, it's super abusable too. Like if you Helping Hand something with like a good spread move, like I'm just going to say Tyranitar Rock Slide. Don't take that as like me saying this is a viable strategy. But if you Helping Hand like a good spread move, you can put out a lot of good damage. If you Helping Hand like one single target move, you can do really insane things. Like I had a Twitch clip recently where I used Helping Hands on my Choice Band Dracovish and Oko to full HP Ferrothorn. That's it's beautiful. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not problematic in some little fraction, but I think that Helping Hand is fine. You're giving up an entire Pokemon's action to like boost the damage output of something else. I think maybe it's between healthy or great design. We'll just slam it healthy to like kind of. We'll slam it healthy. We're gonna protect here a little bit. Prankster, I think, is fine. I don't know if I'd say it's healthy. Playing against Prankster can be really frustrating, but I don't think it's flawed. I mean, it can whiff if you Prankster into a dark type. It can, I don't know, like you're only Prankster, like you're only getting priority to status moves. I think Prankster is fine. What would be bad about it? I mean, obviously Prankster, like the problem with Prankster used to be, or like, at least like when everybody was really up in arms about Prankster, it was when Klefki first hit the scene with like the Thunder Wave, which was still 100% accurate. So 100% accurate Thunder Wave, Swagger, Foul Play set, right? Like you Thunder Wave the opponent's Pokemon, they might get fully parried same turn, then you Swagger them, So now they are confused and paralyzed, meaning they have a very low chance to hit, but you've also raised their attack stats, so when you foul play into them, you do a lot of damage. Now, the way this works is like you can't ever do this to dark types. It just doesn't work. So there's like a check to it built into the game. You also, like, Thunder Wave is not 100% accurate. I think that for the most part, Prankster is like pretty fine. I think that some sets are even like really cool, like Quash on Sableye specifically. It's like a cool support move, or like being able to Prankster set weathers, I think is interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna slam Prankster in the Denny's tier because I think it's just okay. Physical special splits, I think is great design. I think this had to happen. This made so many more Pokemon viable. If you don't know, before Generation 4, so like Gens 1, 2, and 3, there was no physical special split. Like moves were either physically offensive or specially offensive based on their type. So I guess a good example is like fire, water, grass. Those were all special moves. And then like flying, bug, and normal, those were all physical moves. There was no split. It made some Pokemon completely useless. Like Gengar, Ghost was a physical move. I'm pretty sure Ghost was like a physical attacking type. Dragon was a special attacking type. So like things like Dragonite, which don't get me wrong, there wasn't like a good Dragon type move in Generation 1. But even in Generation 2, when they got Outrage, it was a special move. Dragonite's like special attack is much lower than its physical attack. Gengar got Shadow Ball, but it was a physical attack. Gengar's physical attack is atrocious. These Pokemon were all still good, by the way, just based on their stat lines and the like low diversity of threats in Generations 1 and 2. But the physical special split really did a lot for the game. I think it's like one of the most important advancements the game has had. I think you can say that Generation 3 introducing abilities really changed the game in a massive way, and I think the physical special split really changed the game in a massive way. I think those are two of the biggest improvements we've ever seen in Generations. I would say this is probably like the best design mechanic on this list so far. Trick Room I think is healthy. I think Trick Room it can be frustrating to play against, but I think it's inherently healthy. Trick Room in singles is not nearly as good as Trick Room in doubles, because Trick Room in doubles you just get, I mean, it almost is essentially like double the amount of turns because you have two Pokemon on the field. It's not actually double the turns, but you get to use it twice as much effectively. In singles, it's like kind of high risk, high reward. Like if you set Trick Room up at the right time, you could just win the game, and that's dope. I think that's great. I think there's good counterplay to Trick Room, like Imprison Trick Room in doubles. If you're predicting Trick Room in Draft League, you can run Trick Room on a Pokemon to reverse Trick Room, because if you're in Trick Room and you use Trick Room, you reverse Trick Room, which is me saying Trick Room a lot. Yeah, I think it's healthy. I don't know if that's like a hard take, but I think it's fine. Sleep, I think is flawed. Sort of like Flinch here. I don't know how you rework Sleep. I'm only slamming things in rework that I think I have like a reasonable guess here. And I guess Poison, I wish that there was Poison and Toxic Poison. Toxic Poison I would put in Denny's. Poison I would say I would slam it down here. I think it needs to lower special attack. Could be wrong. Sleep I think is inherently flawed, and it's kind of like Freeze. It's not as bad as Freeze because you're guaranteed to wake up after a certain amount of turns, but essentially bricking a Pokemon, not great. There are way more ways to play around Sleep than Freeze. Like you can run Sleep Talk, so you can have like a sleep absorbing Pokemon. There are like abilities that are, I think, common. There's like a reasonable amount of abilities that will make it to where you can't fall asleep, which I guess there probably are for Freeze too, but I don't know them. Flame Body maybe? I don't know. It never comes up because you never plan for that. But like Insomnia as an ability, like you can't be put to sleep, right? Like I don't think any competitive Pokemon runs it. I'm just saying there are way more ways that are reasonable to play around Sleep than there are Freeze. So I think it's flawed. I don't know necessarily how you fix it. Like maybe just make the max sleep turns 2. I think right now it's 3, right? Like if you get max sleep, then you're asleep for 3 turns. I think you also used to be able to get a first turn wake, and now you can't. I don't know, man. I think that Sleep is just really frustrating. And this is coming from someone who loves clicking Spore. I think Sleep is a very frustrating mechanic. But it's not as bad as Freeze. It's hard to quantify these things right now when I'm just doing it on the spot without like having actual numbers pulled up in front of me. I really probably should have looked up actual numbers on like what the chance to wake up is, what the chance to thaw is. But yeah, protect. We're gonna move along. I think protect is probably great design, right? I think protect is really important to the game for a few strategies. It's really important in doubles. Protect is just, you know, like it's important sometimes to be able to make a read and get a protect right. In singles, it's not as valuable by a long shot, but still there are some sets like protect toxic, like that's important, like sub protect toxic. People hate that, but sometimes it's your only way to break down a certain threat. Protecting is really important if your opponent has like fake out pressure. I think that's good to have. Protecting if you have like the speed boost ability. I think protect is like an important part of the game. I think it is pseudo necessary. I think without it, a lot of strategies kind of like fall apart and everything's a little bit too, I don't want to say fast paced, but maybe like everybody's a little bit too hyper offensive. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I just think protect is like really good design. You're giving up an entire turn to not really affect the board in any way with one Pokemon to make sure that that Pokemon can't be affected. And I think that's fine. Also, maxing breaks through it. So did Z Crystals, but again, one shot. So safety goggles. This is an interesting one. I think it's probably just fine, right? It's super niche. Like, you almost never use safety goggles in singles. You use it in doubles because things like Amoonguss and Rage Powder are really common. It might even be healthy for the game to be able to break out of those things because, like we said, like sleep is kind of problematic. I think Follow Me is fine, but having a way to counterplay that I think is probably important. So we'll slam it in healthy. Shadow Tag. It depends on the Pokemon. I mean, Gothitelle can be a nightmare. Mega Gengar was ultra busted. They gave Shadow Tag to Chandelure for like 2 seconds, and it was the most broken thing they'd ever done, potentially. It's probably flawed, right? Like, I don't know how you're reworking Shadow Tag in a way. Maybe these should have been switched, like rework should have been here and flawed should have been here. Like, these are fundamentally flawed to the point of not being able to rework. Because I feel like I'm putting things down here. I mean, I think these are more egregious examples, like things that are way worse than these things, but for the sake of, I don't know, it's fine. It's fine. Shadow Tag, I think, is flawed. I don't know. It's like, its distribution is not very high, so not a lot of Pokemon get it. The Pokemon that do get it are sometimes like sus at best. I guess we're also including Arena Trap here, so like Dugtrio and freaking Trapinch, just trapping Pokemon. I think it might be okay. It might be like important. Maybe it's, I don't know. I think it super depends on the Pokemon. I think I'm gonna leave it in flawed because like Dugtrio coming in and being able to claim a KO on something that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to KO seems like kind of neat. And also they know about it in team preview, but Dugtrio can't come in and then set up Infinity Calm Minds and sweep through your opponent's team like Gothitelle can. Mega Gengar is not even worth talking about. It's not a reasonable Pokemon. Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's probably flawed in that the ceiling is very, very high. The average case is probably somewhere in the middle. And I think that there's something wrong with how high the ceiling is on specific Pokemon. It's like Gothitelle. Wobbuffet is super frustrating, but probably not very good anymore. It used to be always been, and I think it's essentially unplayable now. Dugtrio, I think, is like kind of important. I think Gothitelle is just super frustrating, right? I think Mega Gengar, again, not a reasonable Pokemon. It'd be interesting to see like if Mega Gengar was legal right now. One, I think it would be insane because Pokemon don't get Pursuit anymore. So it would be super good in that regard. And two, I think it would be very good in the VGC format specifically because it was just like a fast Perish Song user that also trapped, which Gothitelle is a slow Perish Song user that traps. I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it in flawed. Sub. I love Substitute. I think it's great. I think it's a good mechanic. I think it rewards you. It's another one of those things where it's like high risk, high reward. And I think that things like that lead to interesting play lines. Setting up a sub at the opportune time gives you a massive advantage. It costs you a lot of health, like 1/4 of your health bar is not a little amount when you're talking about competitive games. I think, and I mean, it's not even like super used in VGC, right? Like, I don't think it's problematic in that format. And I also don't think it's problematic in singles. Like, if you're predicting a switch, you're predicting like a status move and you sub up in front, it's great. If you sub and then they just attack into you and break your sub, it's not very good. I think sub is great design. I put it above healthy for sure. Tailwind I think is fine. I think Tailwind, I mean, it's speed control. I think it's way better than like paralysis for speed control. I think paralysis is like, again, I think it's fundamentally something is wrong with it. I think it is it on the same level as Trick Room? It might be healthy actually. It might be healthy. I'm having a hard time with this one a little bit because I think Tailwind and Trick Room are accomplishing essentially the same thing. Tailwind, I think, is probably a little bit more universal. It requires less building around. So maybe it's just fine because it's a little bit, it's like easier to abuse than Trick Room. Not that Trick Room isn't abusable, it's very abusable. But Tailwind specifically is easier to abuse than Trick Room, just because you don't have to have a team where you've built the entire team around being slow. And if your Tailwind fizzles, you still have a team of like reasonable Pokemon, whereas if your Trick Room fizzles, yeah, I think it's fine. I think I'm gonna leave it in fine. I've talked myself into it. Taunt, I think, is important. Without Taunt, I think the game is a lot worse. I think being able to stop your opponent from going for sort of like these status moves, like being able to stop stall-y strategies, I think is important. Like, I don't think stall is bad as a strategy at all. I think it's super fine just to like get that out in the air. I think stall is super okay. I think it's fine. But I think it's important to be able to stop it. You know what I mean? Like, I think if there were no checks to it, it would be rampant. It's already kind of rampant, right? Like, I'm surprised Regenerator is not here as a competitive mechanic. I think Regenerator would probably need to be reworked. I think I would slam it in reworked or flawed. But I think Taunt as a way to sort of like break through the cycle of your opponent, like going for protect, healing up, using toxic, blah, 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 blah. I think it's important. And it's also like good counterplay to things like Trick Room, a good counterplay to like Pokemon that are only supportive, like Helping Hand Pokemon like Clefairy, is like the first one I thought of. I think it's important to be able to shut those Pokemon down in a way. So I think Taunt's important. I think Terrain is great. I'm gonna tell you right now, I think Terrain and Weather are both fantastic mechanics. I think they add a lot to the game. I think that they might be a little centralizing because they offer a lot of inherent synergy within themselves. So like if you have, let's just use a Pelipper, for example, right? Like you have a Pelipper that sets the rain, you instantly get 100% accurate hurricanes and you get boosted water type attacks. And then you have other Pokemon alongside that can abuse it. Terrain is like very similar. Like you get Terrain, it's probably boosting one of your stab attacks, and then it also affects the field in certain ways. I think that's inherently good. It gives people options. I don't even think like a lot of teams, like a lot of top tier, a lot of top tier teams abuse Weather and Terrain, but I don't think it's like so centralizing that only top tier teams abuse Weather and Terrain, if that makes sense. I think Terrain has added, I don't know. I think once they added the Tapus, I think that the game, from my perspective, it got a lot better. Because now you have this whole new aspect of the game to play with, whereas like manually setting Terrain is trash. It was never good. But auto setting by just switching in a Pokemon and then getting a damage bump and then all the secondary effects that Terrain provides, I think that's really valuable. I think it leads to really interesting team building. I don't know. People probably hate it. I am a big fan of Weather and Terrain, so I'm going to slam them into great design. And if you disagree with me, disagree with me. Priority, I think, is another one. I think Priority is really well designed. I think Priority is probably just healthy, though, because there are sometimes where I feel like Priority is, one, a little bit convoluted when it gets to like negative priority, like the difference between Trick Room and Roar, which I think is also, it leads to interesting team choices. So I think I'm just going to slam Priority here. Well, no, actually, hold on. I am going to put it in healthy for the sole fact that right now Rillaboom is just like busted because it auto sets Terrain and then its move gets priority. Maybe Terrain is just healthy. Maybe these two things are just healthy. I don't know. I love terrain. I'm going to leave weather and great design. I think weather is very well designed. Terrain, I can see instances where it's like a little bit oppressive, right? So I'm going to leave terrain and healthy. I'm going to bump it down. I've talked myself into it. And then priority, I think, can be incredibly fun. I think it can be incredibly fun. It can be incredibly rewarding. But I guess at some points it can just be like a super frustrating mechanic, right? Like, I guess a good example is in the Ubers tier. If you just set your Arceus up with the sword stance and all of your opponents had taken like a reasonable amount of damage, like some chip, then extreme speed Arceus just kills everything, right? Like that can be frustrating. So I think it's healthy though. I do think it's healthy. I think it's important to have like ways to pick off Pokemon that otherwise outpace you. Like I shard into a Salamence or a Garchomp or something like that. I think that's important. And then weakness policy, to finish out to the tier list here. I'm weakness policy. I'm a little bit like, I don't know. I think it's good. It's kind of high risk, high reward. I'm gonna put it back down. You can't slam it in the bottom. Once you pick it up, you can't set it back down. I think weakness policy is a lot bigger of an issue in doubles where you can pop your own weakness policy by using like a priority move, like using Draining Kiss with Comfey, so it's priority, right? Like using Draining Kiss with Comfey into like a Goodra to pop your own Goodra's weakness policy. Like I think that at times can be a little bit oppressive. I think it's like that strategy in general is not super, like it's good, but it's not like meta defining in VGC. So I don't think it's like ultra problematic. I think it's fine. I think weakness policy is fine. I think it's high risk, high reward. Like in singles, you always have to get hit by your opponent's move. So I think it levels out. Like even if it's like maybe kind of problematic in VGC or doubles, which I don't even think I would say it's problematic. It just gives interesting team building options. Then in singles, it's super high risk, high reward. And also like you can say the same thing about VGC too. Like it's high risk, high reward. You have to be attacking your own Pokemon. So you're like taking one of your Pokemon, like your more supportive Pokemon, like that Pokemon's doing nothing but inflicting damage onto you to increase your damage output. Those turns can go scuffed really quickly, especially if like your opponent just has like follow me or rage powder, right? So, all right, this is it. This is a tier list. These are my, I'm not going to go through and re-tier everything in individual tiers. I think it would take too long. But let me know what you think. This is my tier list. This is what I believe to be accurate for the competitive mechanic tier list in Pokemon. This is coming from someone, again, who has most of his experience in like the draft league format, but has been dabbling in VGC and has always dabbled in Smogon laddering. So there you go. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know which ones you strongly disagree with. I would love to hear your takes on it. And let me know which ones you think I nailed. That's it. Like the video if you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Remember, Twitch will be the first link in the description down below. But my name is Vivid. This has been a long video. I'm kind of done here and I have to leave. Okay, bye. Oh, you made it to the end of the video. That's dope. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more from me and make it to the end of those videos, there will be a video here and a video here. This one is a video that I think is really good, and this is what YouTube recommends. So you should watch one of them. Okay, thanks.